right, I'm going to talk about something controversial today, specifically controversial: submission and consent. People get this wrong all the time, and it needs to be clarified. And this came up because I was responding to that viral video about that hippie guy that kissed that girl that was being interviewed on the news in the park. And I wanted to comment on this reaction, sort of like, either you react an extreme supportive way or an extremely, offended way. But for those people who were offended and felt like, well, it wasn't a consensual kiss, so it was criminal and a sexual assault, I wanted to respond to that implication that all contact has to be consensual, and just to really flesh it out a little bit in this concept. Now, to make consent and mandate that it's explicit for women, it really goes against our nature as feminine women, right? We're meant to be subtle, we're meant to be coy. And it's not to say that we should not consent, but we do need to have a feminine way of communicating that consent. And to make us be explicit and bold and boisterous, aggressive in that sense is not necessary. Now, obviously, there are going to be some bad outcomes when people misunderstand, but for the most part, it should be an innocent misunderstanding, no harm, no foul. And there are going to be people who intentionally violate the boundaries, sexually or otherwise, of other people, and especially those that are vulnerable. And we do need to protect them, and we do need to punish those people. But that's a specific subset of instances and of people that are doing that. And to make everybody imprisoned by this idea that all contact needs to be explicitly laid out in a contractual verbal agreement or written agreement, that's absurd. So let's not have an attack on another way that women are supposed to be feminine. Let's hold the people accountable who take back their word and weaponize their coyness in order to maybe hurt the person because of their regret of whatever choice they made. Now, also, we're going to try to punish the people who do violate women or other people, it doesn't have to be women, when they don't consent, and hold them accountable. Now, I said this on Twitter, and somebody responded to me. They were genuinely curious about understanding my point, and I asked them to sort of give me a little bit of an idea of what they were interpreting, because I didn't know in what way I could explain further. So she came in and said, well, I've had some friends that were married and whose husbands forcibly raped them because they said no and did not consent to sex, and she was trying to relay that as relevant to my example about consent not being necessary. So I explained to her, no. Rape is still rape, right? There's no justification for that. But especially if we're talking about a spousal scenario in a marriage, it gets tricky because obviously in old sort of days, it was allowable for a man to be forceful with his wife, and women were not protected. Rape was not even definitional in that sense, right? So obviously we don't want to go back to that type of association, but you have to remember, a man who loves and honors his wife is going to make sure that she willfully submits to him and would never rape his woman. And a woman who loves and honors her husband is going to willfully submit to him and would never consider that rape of any sort, or that it was bad or undesirable. And so this brings into question the definition of submission. So I wanted to expand on that a little bit more so that we could have some clarity, because people seem to think submission is about the forcible conquering of someone, right? So as if you're in a battle and people are coming to war and you have to submit because they're threatening your life and you're under duress. That's criminal, right? That is a criminal act. That's not the same thing as healthy submission. Submission is to consent to agree to be receptive. It's willfully agreeing to do something, because obviously if they're your spouse, they're your loved one, in a romantic sense, then you want to please them, you want to pleasure them. So it's not going to be seen as something that's wrong, and it goes both ways, right? So the man is not going to want to do anything that the woman is just not into and force her to do it, and the woman is also going to be able to be receptive to that kind of contact or initiation and enjoy it, and for it not to be unpleasant. So it goes both ways, and we need to honor that and make sure that it's understood that when people talk about submission in the gender sphere, that they're not talking about anything violent or threatening in that sense. It's absolutely something that's beautiful and mutual, and something that is necessary, because otherwise you're painting a picture of a woman who is basically undesirable. Like she's undesirable, but she's not desiring her husband. She wants to push back and push away her partner. And that's just not healthy to be in a relationship with someone you do not have that receptivity to. So I hope that you consider this, and I know it may bring up maybe some displeasure or some very raw, intense emotions if you feel very strongly about this. So feel free to leave comments below. Please try to keep them reasonable, and understand that I'm absolutely not trying to put anybody in danger, but to redefine these concepts so that we have healthier, happier relationships, and we don't go crazy trying to police people's natural, romantic, passionate tendencies. And it's really the beauty of male-female, or just in general sexual relationships, right? And love, that if we make it so cold and callous and planned and structured, then it's going to lose all of its beauty. So don't bite your nose to spite your face. Understand that there are always going to be bad people doing bad things, or even sometimes good people doing bad things. And you need to deal with that and prevent that for the best that you can. But ultimately, most people are not trying to do harm. And if there's a misunderstanding, clarify it. But let people be people, and let's promote the healthy behaviors, and let people express themselves in a way that does more good than harm, and celebrate that. So I hope to talk to you soon. Feel free to reach out. You can request my 15-minute discovery call, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.